Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Greg Marcel Dixon. I am from South Carolina, born in Savannah, Georgia, but I have lived and was raised in Jasper County, South Carolina, which is across the bridge from Savannah all my life. I've worked there for most of my life as a teacher of 17 years, and I'm now running for Congress for South Carolina's 6th Congressional District against James Clyburn.
Okay, so basically, one question I got for you is basically, what's your plan on basically, um, do you have a plan on eliminating birthright citizenship?
That is definitely something I would support. Absolutely. A birthright citizenship was originally done for descendants of American slaves. Black Americans were legislatively called freedmen. It was done for us. It's ours is being used for, however, for people to either come here as tourists and overstay their visas and be in the country illegally, or people who are crossing the borders and entering our country illegally for them to get citizenship. And what they do is they come here, they have a child, they participate in something called birth tourism, where they have a child. Some people use the term anchor babies, and then they use their children who are technically American citizens and say, I should be allowed to stay in America because my child is an American. And if you deport me, like they should be deported, then you will be breaking up my family. The truth of the matter is you had no business entering our country illegally in the first place. The second truth of the matter is that if you are so concerned about your family, you would not have left your family in your native country. And third, my plan calls for deportations, but we can also arrange for their children to go with them. And that way their families can stay together.
So when you win, what is your basically what you gonna do on day one?
On day one, I'm going to do several things that Clyburn has not done in 30 years. One, I'm going to actually write legislation about reparations. And before anyone tries to say HR 40 is a reparations bill, no, it is not. It is a study of reparations. But Native Americans, several Native American tribes have gotten reparations. No study was needed. They have tax exempt status. Some get paid direct monetary payments by the government every single month. They have land. I know the reservation system is not perfect, but they actually have land, something that we, Black Americans, freedmen, descendants of American slaves, we've had 15 million acres of the 16 million acres of property our ancestors fought to get and then fought to keep. The number one cause of lynching was land theft. So they had to fight off lynch mobs only for us to lose our land through heirs property, something that is very prevalent here in South Carolina, where you inherit a property from an ancestor, but they didn't leave a will. So you share the property with other relatives. But if anyone sells their shares, either they wanted to sell it or they were forced to sell it, other people could be buy out for a very small amount. The United States Department of Agriculture discriminated against us. Okay, in eminent domain, government buying our property for development purposes. I am going to, and then Japanese Americans got reparations for being thrown in internment camps for a few years. And then we even pay reparations to Holocaust survivors, even though the only role we played in that was stopping the Holocaust. My great-grandfather being a World War II veteran, but he didn't get a penny of the GI Bill that allowed white veterans, 14 million of them, to get homes, to get property, start businesses, get pension, get health care. I am going to write actual reparations legislation for us to get direct monetary payment, to bring back the Freedmen's Bureau, a whole agency of the government that will actually look out for us and handle all affairs pertaining to reparations, make sure we get tax exempt status, help us return to Black farming, get us compensation for the land we've lost, and help us become land owners again. That is just a bit. I'm also going to deal with the fact of land laws via heirs property. Clyburn's district is 50 to 60% Black. The majority of Black land ownership in America is heirs property, but we don't get any value from the property because you can't get a certificate of equity from heirs property. That should not be the way it is. That means we're losing trillions of dollars in wealth and no one's written legislation to do anything about it. Clyburn's had 30 years, he hasn't. Those are the two things I'm going to be: reparations and then dealing with the issue of heirs property.
Okay, so basically, what would you do if a lot of Black people had land, but now a corporation's on that land, like a Hilton or a huge corporation? What is your plan on basically getting those people, A, they land back, and B, some type of money?
That's why I'm bringing back the Freedmen's Bureau. The Freedmen's Bureau, for those who don't know, was a department of the government to make sure that people who were formerly enslaved, our ancestors, if you are a descendant of an American slave, not a Black immigrant, but those who built the nation, it was to make sure we had good jobs, was being paid fairly, had land, owned homes, were protected, had health care. And had they been allowed to do their job, we would have had that 40 acres and a mule. That if you're, and I'm not sure of your background, but if you are a Black American, if you're a South Carolinian, then you know that here on the coast, that's where the 40 acres of mule came from. It came from us. My plan is to bring back the Freedmen's Bureau, who will deal with those type of issues. Black women going missing, Black women dying just trying to give birth to a child, Black men being the majority of the homeless in this nation, Black children who are now committing suicide at the highest rate of people in their age group, 5 to 12, which is something that has never happened. We've never committed suicide more than white people in any age group. Now, among children, we do. There's a crisis among our children inheriting trauma for centuries that we've gone through. Black businesses, 50% wiped out by COVID-19. They will also deal with that issue you mentioned. Us being able to get that land back, that is something I cannot promise. But what I can do, and that can immediately happen, is that when we can show that that land was once ours and we lost it because of one, the same way corporations like Wells Fargo and all those businesses on Wall Street was founded on slave labor and the wealth of slavery, and they're still going strong today. On the other side, we inherited the poverty of chattel slavery because we didn't get a penny. We had no wealth to inherit, that we should have gotten trillions from that. So what I can do is make anyone who can show that they or either lost their property because of property taxes being so astronomically high and they couldn't pay it, or eminent domain, and they were a freedman, a descendant of an American slave, that they will be able to be compensated for their land being lost. I will be able to make it where they should be able to have shares in those corporations. That is only fair to me.
Okay, so what is your plan on basically like Emmett Till? If like something happened back in the day in the 60s or the 40s, back in the day basically, what is your plan on basically getting those people arrested or basically holding new people accountable?
Another part of my reparations package, which is on my website, marcelvacarnes.com, I have everything I've said, is also investigating cold cases of Black Americans that have been killed, but no one has been brought to justice. And that liar, the white heifer that's still alive, who was a part of Emmett Till's savage murder, exactly, bringing people like that to justice. But another part of my plan, just kind of taking it a little further, is for us to come back to the American South. Our homeland is, we are Americans, okay? We have African ancestry. That might be our roots, but we are Americans. America is our land. Not only have we built it, we fought for it, we've sustained it, okay? And it still owes us. Our homeland here in America is the rural American South. South Carolina being home to most of the many Black people, one of the blackest states in the Union. No, the blackest state in the Union. First state to become majority Black and stayed that way the longest, from 1703 to almost to 1960. I want us to come back to the American South. Okay, it won't just be the South, because obviously we've lived throughout this whole country. We have historic freedmen neighborhoods throughout this nation. But once we get back to the South, I want us to have a school choice, freedmen schools. But I also want us to be able to police ourselves. I want to have our own judicial system. similar or going beyond the way Native Americans do. So my plan for a judicial system for us is for us to be able to police ourselves and handle our own affairs, because this thing we got here now obviously ain't been working for us.
All right. So after reparations, after we get reparations, and what will be next? Basically, would it be we're gonna get more reparations for Native Americans? Will we go after the Arabs? Will we go after a lot of parts of Africa? Will we go after some places in Europe? What is next?
Of course, Britain, France, Spain, the Netherlands, all of them are definitely responsible because all of them participated in the affront to humanity that was chattel slavery. And, it begins with chattel slavery, but it doesn't stop there, because the truth of the matter is our death rates and murder rates soared after slavery. This is somewhere between 20% of the Black population was murdered, lynch mobs, Black Wall streets. There's more than one, burnt to the ground. We did that without a penny in our pocket, being terrorized every single day, and many of us being illiterate. Had those Black Wall Streets been allowed to thrive, it would have made New York City look like a one-stoplight town. They were burnt to the ground. All the wealth we should have had gone with it. Okay? Redlining, Jim Crow, vagrancy laws, debtors prison, sharecropping, all of the horror we went through after slavery. I want to make that very clear. After reparations, there is no after reparations, because if anybody reads my plan, reparations is not going to be something that happens and we're done with it. It's going to be something that's going to be in perpetuity. It's going to happen forever. But my platform does have other policies on it. Transportation, for one. I am here, my district is 97% rural. Where I live my entire life, Jasper County, is rural. Transportation. Saying when we have programs to help people become homeowners, I have a program listed on my website, marcelbacars.com, help people become car owners and help them with car down payments, but also car maintenance. Because I've seen too many people who live literally in the woods, can't get to a doctor's appointment. We have food deserts here. If you go to places like Allendale or, Garnett, they can drive for 10 miles and not even pass a gas station, let alone a grocery store, or definitely not a hospital or doctor's office. So we need to help people become car owners. But I also expand public transportation to rural areas where we don't have to rely on a vehicle. I have my education plan. I have my thriving communities plan. So reparations is the centerpiece of my platform, but it's by no means the only.
Okay, so let's talk about basically, it's this guy, basically, he's running, he's your competition, basically. His name's Michael, I think.
Dr. Michael Addison?
Yeah, I was thinking, why, like, he never really do interviews. It's like he really don't want to win. Is he just, you think, is he just running just to run? What do you think is it?
Y'all have to try to get him on. I am not sure. I mean, some people have said that Clyburn might be, paying him to run to try to help siphon off votes from me. I don't know. I have met Dr. Addison. He seems to be a very great guy. He seems to be genuine, but why he does not make himself more available. And yes, he has been running for, I think, 20 years off and on different positions. But I cannot answer for him. All I can say is that even he says, this is something I want to mention here, he has said it, the Republican candidates against whom I'm running have said it, and we've all said, after 30 years, our district is the sixth poorest. Our majority Black district here in South Carolina is the sixth poorest district in the United States of America out of 435 districts total. How is it that you are poor in 429 other districts when you've been there for 30 years? But see, they don't go far enough. Not only are we the sixth poorest district in the nation, we also have the highest, the worst water quality in the nation, highest levels of toxicity. Denmark, South Carolina, in Bamberg County, hasn't had clean water in 10 years. For 10 years, they were putting an unapproved, untested chemical in those majority old Black people's water source. And has Clyburn been beating the drum about that? No, he has not. And they're trying to tell the people the water is safe to drink, and the people that don't believe it. We have the worst health outcomes in America. Right there in Columbia, and I'm not showing you Columbia, but I see you have a Gamecock shirt, but right there in Columbia, in Richland County, you please look it up. They did an article about it in the state newspaper. More Black people have amputations, arms, toes, feet, legs, chopped off because of simple things like diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension, simply because they can't get to a doctor, they can't get to a hospital, they don't have nutritious food in their neighborhoods. We have the worst health outcome in the country. We have the highest eviction rate in the country. And even though we are a majority Black district, the average income here is $41,000. You might as well say $42,000. The average white American and average Asian American makes between $55,000 to $60,000. The lowest income are Black Americans with $28,000 in a district where we're the majority and we have a Black American congressman. But what does he do? He writes bills for the Catawba Native Americans, who is a little bit of them, who live in Rock Hill, South Carolina, right there somewhere in York County. It's only 3,000 of them now, most in North Carolina. It was probably only 200 in 1993. The first thing he did when he got in office was sponsor a bill for them to get special privileges, rights, recognition, and protection. That sounds like reparations to me. He said because of all the historical injustices they've been through. What about us? Then in November 2021, he writes a bill for them to get 20 acres of land so they can build a multi-million-dollar casino from which they will get billions of dollars tax-free, that they could put billions of dollars in their pockets. Meanwhile, Black Americans were all going to have zero in wealth by 2053. And that was before COVID came. So we might be there already. What legislation is he writing for us? And what is he pushing now? He's pushing for illegal immigrants to become citizens. Every study has shown, whether it's a Democratic institution or Republican institution, has shown that illegal immigration hurts Black Americans the most, especially Black American men with a high school diploma or less. But he's pushing for them not just to get citizenship, but to get resources in housing, healthcare, transportation, education, while Black Americans, 15 to 20% of the population, were undercounted on the census, meaning resources don't go to our communities, but we're over 55% of those living in the streets.
Okay, let's talk about Richland County. So I know you know that Richland County right now is going through basically a lot of crime. It's killings, it's robberies. What is some of your plans, or what are some of your plans to fix some of that, other than reparations, like maybe like something fast?
It's not just Richland County. North Charleston is has one of the highest levels of gun violence in the United States of America. I think it's been as high as number 2, 3, 4. So it's South Carolina, period. South Carolina has been number 2 for violence, United States of America. And a lot of it does take place here in the coast. Jasper County, Carleton County have all seen high levels of gun violence. Okay, so people say it's a spillover effect from Savannah, Georgia. I say the only spillover effect is that we have some of the same issues that causes gun violence in Richland County, North Charleston, that we have here. Same issues. If you want to fight crime, you have to fight poverty. And we are the only group on which poverty has been imposed on us. Even without reparations, I will go back to this. We built Black Wall Streets. Columbia was a Black Wall Street. I think the street was called Ward Street. That was a Black Wall Street in Columbia. It ended because of integration. When they did integration, some of our people left to go get opportunities for themselves and went to more white communities. And the only people that were left behind were poor Blacks who didn't pay a lot, who didn't have a lot of tax revenue, so their communities declined. Then eminent domain came in, bought property, and ran Black people out. When you replace prosperity with poverty, you're going to get violence. Hamburg, South Carolina is where the Savannah River bomb plant is today. It had the largest inland port in America, and it was a thriving Black successful town. It was destroyed via a racial massacre in part. You have to fight poverty. So my plan calls to do things that a lot of us may not consider when we think of crime. Some things that have been shown to correlate with crime are: one, abandoned buildings. The more abandoned buildings you have, usually the higher the crime will be. People don't usually think that way. I plan to incentivize Black businesses to go in those abandoned buildings, start businesses there, or make them into quality, affordable homes, working with the private sector. I will prioritize Black businesses because they're usually the ones that are overlooked for government contracts on the federal level with federal funding. But for any business who wants to go there and give good to the community, one, you have to have open green spaces. Studies have shown usually the more open spaces in an area, greenery that's well kept, lower gun rate of violence, because people actually get to live and function like a community, work with each other, do cookouts together, speak with each other, places to mingle, places to study. I also plan to invest in adequate street lighting, do the research. Areas that have the most violence and crime usually are areas that are poorly lit. That's one thing. Two, I plan to make health care, which I do believe, this is something just outside of reparations. I believe healthcare should be something that everyone has access to, free of charge, quality. If a person wants to pay for it with an insurance plan, fine, keep it. But there should be an option for us to have it where we don't have to pay. Healthcare is not just physical, it's also mental and emotional. And sometimes what we're seeing with violence is really mental and emotional trauma and lack of interpersonal skills manifesting itself. I plan to make that free of charge. Then child care supervision. Sometimes what we're seeing are a lot of young people, mainly young men, getting into a lot of stuff because they're not being supervised. Parents usually have to work, okay? I'm not saying that parents have a responsibility for their child. Yes, they do. And that's also a thing. I believe in parents being held accountable when their kids do something wrong. However, we should have free, quality, government provided child care services. Another thing, in schools, I am a fan of having security in school. I've been a teacher for 17 years. Anyone who wants to tell you that you don't need security in school, they're living in a la-la land. Come teach in some schools that are trouble and tell me you don't need security in school. But what we do need also, we need more healthcare. So I believe in funding psychiatrists, child counselors, and also merging the Department of Education with the Department of Social Services. Yes, I know when Black people hear that, they scoff or they recoil because child services has historically really terrorize Black families. I plan to change the way social services works. It should be used to prevent a child from being taken from their parents. It should be used to help people keep their head above the water. If a family's going through hardship, you come there and you help them with those hardships. You don't take their children out and try to punish them for having hardship. That's the way it should be. We need to expand social services. We need to pay social service employees more, attract more good-hearted people to that field to work with families and communities. Last but not least, this is something that people don't ask me a lot about on my website. I have a plan on there. We as Black Americans haven't caused any of the issues through which we go through. I want to be very clear about that. We haven't caused not one bit of it. And I'm staying on that. Anybody wants to challenge me, I welcome that debate. Let's televise it. But we go through it. We know how to solve the issues we go through. What happens, unfortunately, though, you know people, I know Black people who may not have much, but they know how to solve the issues in our community. You probably know Black men and women every single day trying to do good for our community, but they don't have the connections. They are going through a lot of bureaucracy. So they're trying to start organizations and nonprofits, and yet they don't have the funding, they don't know people, and it's a good old boy network. I plan to prioritize Black nonprofits by means of setting aside money for them to get grants so that they can also serve their communities in a double full way, address issues that lead to poverty. Like I said, lack of opportunities for recreation, positive organizations for kids to join, because a lot of it is for children. Also investing in neighborhood watch type organizations. Those things have been shown to work, but giving them priority when it comes to funding so that they can do that, and they can also hire people in these communities as well. And that goes to having a livable wage. So it's a multifaceted approach, but you don't fight gun violence by doing what the segregationists we have in the White House did, by writing a crime bill that locked up more people since the days of slavery. But yet, while his son has been on drugs and ain't spent a day behind bars yet, okay? You don't lock people up. You deal with the issues that cause crime, and you don't lock people up for every single little thing. You only lock up the people who commit the most heinous, violent crime. Violent crime, definitely. But a lot of crime, we don't need to lock people up. We need to have people give back to the community, pay a fine, and keep them as productive citizens.
Okay, so a lot of politicians want to get rid of Section 8 and low income housing and possibly giving them some vouchers. Is your plan is basically more fixing up the Section 8 and things, right? You're not a fan of giving people vouchers and shutting down Section 8 housings.
I'm a fan of Black Americans getting the resources we are owed so that we can continue to be the amazing people we are, and we can have our own construction firms and build quality, affordable housing for our own people. But to answer your question more directly, I do know about them doing that. They're doing that in Savannah, Georgia. We have a so-called Black mayor who's allowing people to be put out on the streets from Section 8 housing, and then telling them you can go ahead and buy affordable housing. Some of these people make as little as $1,000 a month. Affordable housing in Savannah, Georgia starts at $1,200. So even if they could afford it, they won't be able to eat or do anything else, not have any power. Raphael Warnock's, the projects where he grew up, is one of those projects where this is happening, those housing developments. And has he said or done anything about it? Zero, zip, nada. But then again, the man is in charge of a church where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used to speak, and you got Black people living outside that church in cardboard boxes, and he does nothing about it. No one says anything to him about it. I guess we worship people. That's our problem there. But no, I'm not a fan of necessarily putting people out of Section 8 housing. I am a fan of policies that will allow our people to get more money in their pockets and keep more money in their pockets. And when I say our people, in this case, I'm talking about Black, white, Asian, whomever, who are in Section 8 housing. I'm a fan of them being able to get a livable wage so where they don't have to be in Section 8 housing. But I feel the government should definitely do more. Housing is a human right. No one should be living on the street. No one should be worried about being thrown out on the streets. Instead of us trying to throw people out of Section 8 housing, we need to be dealing with the issues why they are in Section 8 housing to begin with, because we all know the root of the term projects. That's what they literally were. They sometimes made housing covenants to throw Black people mainly in those type of housing developments. They were very different from the ones in which poor white Americans lived in, which were actually served as a bridge for them to get into the middle class. Ours were for us to stay there. Cough, redlining, cough, housing covenants. The history is ugly and we need to look into it. I'm a fan of making Section 8 housing affordable, making it high in quality, and actually addressing the issues why people end up there in the first place. But the government definitely has a role of keeping people off the streets, keeping people healthy, keeping people safe, and helping people keep their dignity.
All right, so I got two last questions. So one of the questions is, why should Mexicans, white people, Asians, everybody vote for you?
Citigroup Financial is one of the largest financial services in the world. Okay, I mean, that's why remember in the 2000s, they were saying too big to fail. It was one of those companies they said was too big to fail, that if that company collapsed, it would put the global economy in danger. You probably heard of Citibank and, Citigroup student loans. Unfortunately, a lot of people know that. And they did a study in 2020 or 2021 saying that since the year 2000, America has lost $16 trillion because of anti-Black racism. America right now is the wealthiest it's ever been. It's worth $19.2 trillion. So we would be twice as rich had this country paid us reparations in 2000. Imagine if we go back to 1990, okay? What if we go back to 1980, 1970? It adds up. When I say repair Black America to fix America, that doesn't mean Black America only, but it is repair Black America to save America, because the more Black Americans hurt, it hurts everyone. My plan is that America tide rises They say it lifts up everyone's boats. Historically, Black Americans have been thrown out of a boat that we built and left to be eaten by the sharks. That's what happened during the days of the transatlantic slave trade, and it's still happening now figuratively. We need to stop that. When Black America tide rises, everyone tide rises. And if you don't believe that study, you probably need to go and check where your money is right now, because I guarantee you, City Financial Services is probably involved with where you're holding your money, your bonds, your stocks. People need to vote for me, because it's people like me, just like people before, who is telling America, you have a moral duty to repair the damage you caused. We tell other countries that they need to be democracies. They need to repair the damage. We made Germany do reparations because of the Holocaust, okay? We made Japan do reparations to the Koreans. And yet, at the same time, we haven't done it to the group that we have oppressed. Repair Black America to save America, repair Black America to fix America. And that will benefit everyone. People who are Black Americans, descendants of American slaves, and people who are not.
All right, so I got 5 more minutes. So basically, last thing, where can people find you and donate to you?
My website is marcelforcongress.com, and Marcel is spelled M-A-R-C-E-L. You go to marcelforcongress.com/donate. We are in the final stretch. Voting technically begins tomorrow. This is the first time South Carolina has done early voting. So tomorrow it begins. I have put billboards throughout our district. My people right now, and we have already, we've knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors. We've given out hundreds of thousands of flyers. We still are. I have a team out as we speak. We have sent out mass texts, emails. People right now are calling South Carolinians as we speak. I made several public appearances. I've done several meet and greets at Black-owned restaurants, barbershops, hairstyling salons. I have been out there with my message. So if anyone can donate, and you know that we deserve better. And when I say we, I'm not just talking about Black Americans this time. I'm talking about America, period. And you want someone who is unafraid, because right now I don't have any protection. And if I lose my job because someone doesn't like my political views, I don't have a guarantee of getting another one. I'm putting the little bit I have on the line. Some people won't even put their comfort on the line. And if anybody has seen me, I've been on television. I've confronted politicians like Congressman Clyburn, Pete Buttigieg. I have been like this consistently. I'm going to be like this when I get to Congress. The only difference will be I'll actually have a platform and the ability to promote and write legislation to make lives of people better. So marcelforcongress.com/donate.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.